I recorded a couple of these before, but I realized the audio was really shit, so I'm doing a setup with Audacity now where the audio will hopefully be a lot better. But yeah, these are just going to be me going through my own chess games and making commentary about what's happening and my decision making process. Obviously, I'm not great at chess, but I'm hoping that this will help motivate me to analyze my own games a bit, which will make me better, and it might also serve as a useful learning tool to anyone who comes across this who is around my rating or lower. You know, they might get some ideas or inspiration. Alright, okay, so we'll get started. So, as we know, I'm a Queen's Gambit player. They take, and I take. We'll try and speed this up just because in the last recordings it ended up being like kind of long, and I want it to be pretty short. Okay, so the opponent, already their opening is kind of weak, but it's unusual to me, which means I'm having to spend more time than usual thinking of plans. And this move, the computer doesn't like this, but my logic was basically, responding to the threat here. I did consider other options like just taking here and stuff like that, but I liked the position as is, and I was thinking, well, this will, kind of scare them off from taking here, and it'll allow the position to stay on my terms. Okay, so this was an expected move, nothing to be scared of. They did end up taking anyway, so we take with the knight, which the computer likes, and then they move the queen. I'm not sure what the logic behind this move was. I think they were trying to get a checkmate off on this diagonal. I mean, this diagonal is pretty well defended. This diagonal could be defended very easily. If they wanted the queen on this diagonal, they could have just moved straight there. I don't understand what the logic behind. Oh, maybe it was to attack this. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So the idea is you take here. I'm forced to take back, and then you win a pawn, threatening this pawn, etc. But I responded with queen c2 because I did see that threat, and at this point I was thinking of getting a rook on d1, because when the d1 square is empty because you've developed your queen early, that's when you want to get a rook on the d file, especially if there's no pawns on the d file. So this was my goal, and he moves the knight there, or they move the knight there, although it does say rook man, so I'll assume it's a man. So they move the knight here, which I didn't like, so I moved this pawn here, which the engine doesn't like that much, but I liked my position as is, and I was fine with blocking the queen from getting in this way, because at the time I thought that my queen was going to be either attacking on this diagonal or attacking on this diagonal eventually. But yeah, so, oh, by the way, this is 15 minutes aside, so I was able to think a lot more, and my opponent was taking a while with their turns, as you'll see. So yeah, I was able to analyze the positions quite well compared to the 10-minute aside games. Okay, so they castle there. The engine doesn't like that, and the engine also doesn't like me castling queenside. But as I said, this is a decision that you might see. Okay, it doesn't look like I spent that much time, but it was almost a minute, and the thinking was, I was trying to think what am I trying to accomplish here, right? I'm trying to apply pressure on the d file, and what are the advantages of castling on either side? Because obviously castling on king's side is the much more common move, but I was like, if I do that, it's going to be harder to get my rook in the action because these pawns will be blocking the rook, and I'll have to move this rook up and then move the rook there, and and basically the other thing for moving queenside would be, well, you're exposing yourself on this diagonal. But I was like, well, I have this bishop on this diagonal, and I can always move to b1, and then the threat isn't really there, and the king's actually very well defended. So I ended up going castling queenside, which the engine doesn't like, but fuck the engine. And I was thinking, my logic was basically, well, I want a rook on the d file, that's my current goal. So what's the easiest way to get a rook on the d file? By castling queenside. They responded with a rook on the d file, which the engine thinks is a mistake. And I'm pretty comfy in this position. This they also didn't like, for reasons beyond my comprehension. But yeah, this was just me thinking. I couldn't think of anything I wanted to do with my pieces. I kind of liked where my pieces were. I was basically trying to like wait until they move one of these knights or like take or something like that, and then that helps my pieces start moving towards here, because right now these pieces are providing a defense, and obviously this is actually this knight is free now. But yeah, so I did h4. It was pretty much just a move like, well, I've castled queenside. I've noticed that these two pawns are the weaknesses, really. Like, these pawns are poorly defended. So, you know, basically, since their pawn structure is pretty, like, defensive, I thought the best thing to do would just be to, like, slowly start pawn storming. And I didn't think a pawn storm would actually happen, but in the off chance that we start trading pieces or whatever, I wanted my pawns to be close to the king. So yeah, probably much better moves that I could have made there, but whatever. Okay, so a trade there, that's fine for me. Gets my bishop on this diagonal, targeting this weak pawn. Possible downsides are that the bishop is currently poorly defended. The engine didn't like that. As I was saying earlier, I was kind of waiting for them to move this knight, because moving this knight allows me to move this knight here, which is of course forcing this queen to relocate, threatening here potentially, you know, all sorts. Okay. So obviously this is a danger for the opponent, because the queen is... There are potentials for a revealed attack here, although of course there's two pieces blocking at the moment. This was just... I don't even know my logic behind this move. I was just like, I think my idea was to make them weaken their position more by moving their pieces around, but that actually ended up kind of strengthening their position. However, we're back to that problem we were talking about, where the queen is suffering from the potential of a revealed attack, which they've got to look out for. Oh shit, spoilers. Okay, well, we're actually almost at the end, funnily enough, because the position is very tenuous for the opponent, right? They've got to worry about the rook taking this rook. They have to worry about this queen's safety. They have to worry about the bishop attacking here. They have to worry about the queen getting in there. There's a lot of things they have to worry about. Okay, so as I was saying, the position is kind of tenuous for them, because we're threatening this, and you know, a nasty revealed attack because they're in check, so they have to respond to that now. The game really didn't like that move, but I failed to take advantage of it. I think the reason... Let's see why it didn't like that. Yeah, see, bishop there, and then that's just winning the rook, which is something that I did notice, but for some reason I was trying to be clever, I guess. I think I was trying to, like, mess with the queen, but I should have just taken the rook. But yeah, okay, so the queen's back there, then we go f5. You know, a lot of weird movement from the f-pawn, but, you know, at the end of the day, this is pretty nice for me, because that bishop is effed, and more importantly, we have the bishop able to pin the queen, which is what happens here, right? So this was a case of looking at danger levels. I was like, well, pinning the queen being under threat is much more scary than whatever is happening over here, which, you know, might be scary in some situations, although obviously we can just move this bishop back. But yeah, we don't even have to, because this, I mean, the engine doesn't like this, but we're just going to ignore the engine in this case, because, you know, we'll see what happens. So the queen retreats, which of course gives us, oh, of course, even better. Yeah, so the queen retreats, and my first instinct, I was like, oh, well, I'll just take that. But of course, we can now do this, which is beautiful. So they take with that the king as opposed to taking with the queen, because they presumably want to defend this rook. But of course, we now have two attackers on this rook, and they only have one defender, which is a queen. So once we take that rook, they can't take back, and they just resigned at this point, which was probably wise, because it says +10, and I was waiting for their next move. But for example, if I just went queen to c4 next move, assuming they did something stupid like that, queen c4, then that would be checkmate, right? Oh yeah, right, boom boom, checkmate. So and them, oh god, let's get back to where we actually were. Okay, right, yeah, so let's say they defend. How would they defend? Let's try and think. Yeah, I think the defense they had, the only defense they had that I could think of while I was waiting for them to make their move, and they did only have 2 minutes left, so yeah, they did just end up resigning, which fair enough. No shade on J. Rookman, but yeah, so their one defense, I think, would be to make the trade. Yeah. And just lose the queen, and then I have a queen and a rook, which are easy to activate. They have a bishop that's activated, a bishop that's going to take a while to get activated, and a rook, which also will take a while to get activated. So, you know, it says +14, but it may as well say +1 million, because this would have been over. So yeah, good game from my end. I feel like, you know, I was able to properly analyze the dynamics of the position and, you know, make an attack which suited that. Maybe the game would have gone much differently if I had castled kingside instead of queenside, but a win is a win, and, you know, what does Stockfish know? Stockfish doesn't know anything, okay? It's just a stupid robot, you know? What does Stockfish know about chess? Nothing. Alright, I said I wouldn't make this that long, but it has ended up being longer than I intended. But what are you gonna do? Okay, that's everything. Thanks for watching. We'll make more of these, possibly. Adios.